absolutely dreadful when I look back to when I started making videos and I compare that to now. So I would like you to come on a little journey with me and learn the things I've learned over the last 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks and 3 days. That's how long it's been since I started all the projects that I'm now 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks and 3 days into. I had a look at one of my earliest videos called WOKEIPEDIA, Creating Intelligence or something like that. I'll post the link to it, you can watch it. And compared the work I was doing right at the beginning and the conclusions that had led me there to the work that is going on in my life now and that some of you have been part of. So what I want to do is go through the conclusions that I presented in that first video and how that helps us develop in our lives, our personality, become smarter, more intelligent people with better education, and then the expression of that in our lives, how that helps the people that we know and love in our lives, and how we can guide and instruct them. Because I said in my first video, having a good education, having intelligence and learning new things, even having a diverse personality, a character, having a unique individual person, if you live on an island on your own, it's completely worthless. Having an identity of any kind is only valuable when you use it to interact with other human beings. That was pretty much the main goal of me starting this channel, was to develop my own personality and identity and my knowledge so that I could share it with other people and I could learn from them. And we could all increase, we could all improve. So the first point that I made in my video was that bad moods lead to bad attitudes. And the tincture that I prescribed was to develop a peaceful nature. 3 years ago, life wasn't quite so stressful. It was stressful. We were just off the back of COVID lockdowns, and there were various wars on the go. They hadn't actually started yet, but I had said in my video I thought they were going to start, and I said nuclear war was a possibility in the next decade. So with all that in mind, with all this stress and reasons to be miserable or angry, I postulated that a good attitude and maintaining a good mood was the best way that you were going to keep your mind straight and continue progressing in your own life so that you could help other people and we could all increase the world, and specifically our local area, our nations. While the rest of the world was going down dramatically and getting worse, we could be getting better. And the tincture that I offered was a peaceful nature. So how do we develop a peaceful nature? Well, even if you don't have this, you can still take these tips and put them into your own life, because at the time I wasn't confident in presenting myself as a Christian 3.5 years ago. Although I did put little tidbits of Bible knowledge into my videos, if you're a Christian, you can tell that I'm a Christian and that I'm giving you a Christian teaching. I never once mentioned the Bible. I was happy enough to talk about the Quran, but I was not confident to mention this book, and this book has been instrumental. Absolutely instrumental in me maintaining a peaceful attitude, getting over the problems that I've faced. And I would say to you, even if you're not a Christian, if you have troubles and problems in your life that you find insurmountable, too difficult for you to deal with on your own or even with your family, or if the solutions that you find are not satisfactory, I would absolutely recommend that you study this book, even as an atheist, for you will find solutions to those problems in here. And they are practical solutions that you can do on your own. You don't need anyone else's help apart from the writers of this book. I said we need to build a solid foundation. And the solid foundation is our home, our surrounding. The study area that I'm sat in now, all this stuff, my background, my computer and camera, my microphone, this, and the fact that I've got pens and paper handy, and I read books, this is all my solid foundation. And the reason I call it a solid foundation is because I've invested heavily in it, not just money, but time, energy, organisational thought. I have made sure everything that I could possibly need is here. And I would absolutely recommend and strongly suggest, if you haven't done that already, that this should be priority number 1 for you. Like I said, the world out there is stressful and people are very concerned with their insular problems, their own life and thoughts. and they won't necessarily have the time that they used to have many years ago to help out complete strangers, new friends, even family members. Maybe those relationships are rocky, maybe they break down. We have to become self-sufficient. We have to know that even with no help, no family and friends, no government, we can look after ourselves and we can still increase our potential and progress in our lives. How else are you going to do that unless your home is straight? I actually quoted Jordan Peterson back when he was an atheist, but I liked him better. And his work primarily consisted of 2-hour lectures as an atheist talking about the psychology of the Old Testament books. Now this absolutely thrilled me to see, because I was a Christian, but I was still in the mindset of living in an atheist world. So while I was building my foundations up here, and you can see I've done a fairly good job if you compare it back to 3 years ago, a lot of the knowledge that I took and used is from the Old Testament books, but the way that I interpreted it was through Jordan Peterson's psychology videos. Note to self, if you haven't watched those, go back to the early 360p videos of Jordan Peterson before he was famous, before anyone knew what his name was, when he was a lecturer in a university teaching psychology based on the Old Testament. It's absolutely fabulous. Really, if you haven't seen those, you're doing yourself a disservice. You should watch those. But the point is, watching those videos and reading the Old Testament was instrumental in me building my solid foundation. And you can see here, the things that I have as a foundation, I have many books, not just the ones that I agree with, not just the ones that I agree with and agreed with then. I also have the complete opposed views. So I'm a Christian and a conservative, I'm a man, and I'm British and I'm English, and I have Jewish ethnicity. So that's the nexus of books that I have that I support, and I read all of those books through to conclusion, and I made good records, including videos, including copious amounts of notes. I had conversations with you all, or most of you, and became friends with you, but I also had debates with the opposed people, and I read their books as well. This is all something that you will need to do to increase your foundation. Because believe you me, the people that oppose you the strongest, they're the ones you need to know the best. It's all very well knowing your friends and family and people that agree with you, because they're the easiest ones to relate to. They already know the things you know. You already know about them. And there's no argument, there's no discussion there. You're just echoing each other. You're similar. But they're not the people that are going to come for you when the time to attack you arrives. Spiritually or even sometimes physically, as I found out last year when a man tried to kill me outside of my door for a difference of opinion, for a difference of ethnicity. But I got through it, and I continued to progress because my foundation was solid enough that even an earth-shattering event like that, someone physically being so madly angry with you for no more reason than the colour of your skin and the values of your faith, he tried to physically end my life, and he continued to try this until he eventually got arrested, banned from the town, moved away, and now is... I never see the guy. I don't know where he is. I mean, God bless him. I hope he's in full repentance and his life's improving. But the point is, I didn't let that destroy me. He spent 7 years doing everything he can to destroy me. And the reason I was able to survive that psychological and physical assault, that war, was because of my solid foundations, not just based on the things that I knew, not just based on my own ethnicity, my own culture, my own faith values, my own traditions and family, but based on an understanding of where his was coming from. Based on an understanding of why he thought racism against me was good, why he thought persecuting me was good, why he thought the behaviours that he was doing were actually beneficial to him and that I didn't matter. I studied him. I studied his tradition. I studied his culture. Know your enemy is something I knew not just from reading the Bible, but from a book called The Art of War, which is another tome from the enemy of my country. So that's the first bit of advice that I'm going to give you, is absolutely study your enemy as if they are your family. Really get to know your enemy, not just in terms of what they do and how they sound, but how they got there, how they grew from an innocent baby with nothing in their head to the person who wants to end your life physically today and is willing to do anything to accomplish that. Lie, deceive, create false evidence, steal, even kill. And the way that you will learn those things is through studying books, watching videos, and making your own records. And that will sharpen up your conclusions. Like I said in my first video, it's all very well watching hundreds of hours of videos and reading every single page of every single book. But that won't teach you anything. That lays the table for your brain to go and eat its dinner. But when you eat your dinner, you're doing organic brain thinking. And that means you don't read, you don't watch, you think. Just exclusively you sit down and you write your thoughts down. Then you study them to sharpen the edges on them. Then you will learn. And then you will become wise in your ways. And that's actually out of the Bible if you're a Christian. That is Proverbs biblical knowledge. So that's the first thing. Make sure you've got a solid foundation. Tidy your room, actually, is how Jordan Peterson presented it. Organise your living space and make sure you're making the most of your efficiencies. So you're not wasting your own time, you're not wasting your own money, you're not throwing your resources away fruitlessly, and you're not being frivolous with your own years of life. We get older and we slow down. Like I am slower than I was 3 years ago. So I have sharpened up my life to make it easier for me to work. And that's my solid foundation. The third point was build up your team. Birds of a feather flock together. And what that means is while you're studying your enemy, while you're studying your opponents, while you are learning the ways of those who would come to destroy you, your mindset is going to be affected by this. Psychologically, it's very difficult to actually consider that for absolutely no more reason than your ethnicity, your faith, your character, your personality, your family traditions, that people not only want to bring you down and wreck the hard work that you have done, but sometimes they physically want to end your life. It's a very difficult thing to understand if you haven't experienced that, especially when you tell people about it and they just don't believe it. They just can't accept that that happens because we are so charmed life, spoiled really in the West. We generally don't have that happening. We generally don't have to deal with racism. We generally don't have to deal with people trying to kill us. We haven't until recently. And that means it's a very isolated position if that's happening to you, especially if the person's psychotic and they are, trying to make that situation worse for you. They're trying to isolate you and lie about you, gaslight you, wreck your character. That is very difficult to take. And remember, point 1 was bad moods lead to bad attitudes. So being under that extreme psychological pressure, it will absolutely wreck your mood and it will cause your attitude to decline. Your progress will stop and you'll actually start regressing. So the best thing, therefore, to do, this is point number 3, is build a team of people around you who you can trust. That's absolutely the most important thing. Doesn't matter how pretty they are, how rich they are, how intelligent they are, what their views are, how diverse they are. If you can't trust them, get rid. That's absolutely the golden rule for having friends and building a team, is you need to be able to absolutely trust the people that you work with because you're telling them about your life. You're giving away personal, sometimes very, important information about yourself and your life, your address, your phone number, your email, your social media links, how you look, the views that you have, the things that you think about other people, all these things that are inside your head, safe and sound, that no one needs to hear about. When you become close in your relationships and you build your friend team up, you're going to be trading those details. You're going to be asking them, what do you think? Who do you know? What's your conclusion on life? Are you wrong? Are you right? How are you making progress? And you'll be doing the same internal inquiry so that you can sharpen yourself. And like the Bible says, iron sharpens iron. You're both going to be like a sword. You're both going to be clashing swords. So you're not always going to get along. Sometimes you're going to fall out. Sometimes you're going to have a difference of opinion, and maybe you'll even reach what I call a deal breaker, where your difference of opinion is so prominent that you actually can't move past it, and you become obsessed with it and argue about it all the time. It happens fairly regularly in love relationships, where you come to a point in a conversation where you cannot move past it until it's solved. And that is only going to be possible. You're only going to solve those if you trust one another implicitly enough to volunteer that dangerous information and listen to the other person. When they're trying to explain to you why you might be wrong, it requires good mood, good attitude, trust. So if you don't have that, you've got no chance and you will go into regression. So point number 3, build your team. Make sure you trust the people. Make sure you have intellectual diversity. Now, I'm not talking about stock political diversity, like what you see on BBC News, diversity being one black person, one Arab person, one Chinese person, one white person, one Jewish person, one trans person. That's not diversity, that's Marxism. That's the opposite of diversity. That is stereotypical castes having an equal representation, but inside their heads they all think exactly the same thing, and nobody's willing to change. That's the opposite of intellectual diversity. So, what you want to do is build a team of people who get along, who you can trust, but who have differences of opinion and ideas, and are willing to argue about them without falling out with you. They're willing to have those debates with you, and they can trust you enough that when they tell you things in confidence that you don't agree with, you're not going to weaponize that information and use it to try and destroy them. You're going to remain in the conversation despite your differences, and you are both going to drive towards the point of, the point where you cross, the point of truth you're both heading towards. When you get there, it will be celebrated. But you're not going to get there unless you trust one another and you allow for intellectual differences. Like with me, some of my friends are Catholics, some of my friends are atheists. I did have friends who were Muslims, but since October the 7th, they now feel that having Jewish ethnicity and being a Christian is a deal breaker for them. So they're no longer friends with me. And actually, now that I know more about their religion from studying Islam, I find it very difficult to accept them as friends, knowing how they feel about me. So it comes down to study. Who can help you study? Who you trust and who has that intellectual diversity, and who can you help study with your views, opinions, and your attitudes. And when you have a good team around you, it only needs to be like 2 or 3 people. It doesn't need to be a large team. 2 or 3 people is a good team. My current team is 6 people. We've known each other less than a year. There's only one person in there I've known more than a year. Shout out to you, Glenn07. But everyone else, we're fairly new to each other. We've known each other less than a year. But even so, I can see the potential in that team as it develops, as everyone's potential starts to get encouraged out. And I can see we're all heading in the same direction. We're all humanists. We're all Christians. We all believe in God. Now, we don't all have the same doctrines. We don't all believe everything the same 100%. There's going to be points of contention and arguments as we get to know each other. But these are 6 people I implicitly trust, and I will volunteer things to them that I wouldn't tell anyone else, and I would hope that they would say the same about me. So that's my team that I'm building, and I'm willing to be part of any teams that they build. And that means in future, my solid foundation is not under threat. Maybe I can learn things from them, maybe they can learn things from me. And when we have our discussions, our mood, our attitudes, and our education is going to progress. That's going to help all of us. And then as a team, we can offer benefits to the rest of society through the work that we do, through the expression of our personalities and our work. Sorry if I'm waffling. This is like a 3-year conclusion. That the information I'm giving you now, this took me 3 whole years, over 3 years to get to this point where I can tell you these things. So this is not like, this is not one of those 7-hour waffle streams or a 3-hour educational entertainment video. This is me teaching you the things I have learned and struggled to know, that I've sacrificed for 3.5 years, so that you can learn them in half an hour. So I would ask you, even though this might not be the most interesting video ever, that if you can't get through it in 1 sitting, watch it in 2 sittings. If you can't make a mental note of the things I'm telling you, write them down. Like, that's what I do. Make notes. Don't rely on your memory. Because if you learn these things, and when you learn these things, you will absolutely progress, and your progress will be accelerated. Whether you're atheist, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Zoroastrian, agnostic, communist, whatever. If you take note of these things that I have struggled to learn, and you learn them, your stock will increase in a number of ways. And I really feel like the stress of the world, remember that's why we're doing this, the disillusion of hope and progress throughout the world, the slowing down of the economy, the eruption of wars, the division within society, that is stressful and it takes away from us individually. And if we improve ourselves with these strategies that I'm giving you now, we can not only defeat that decline, we can improve despite that, and we can become leaders. We can become leaders in our groups, in our lives, and we can show the way for the weaker people in our population. That's really where this is going. We have potential to become leaders, and I'm sure you'll agree. Looking on the TV and the radio, all over YouTube, who is leading us well at the moment? Celebrities? No, they're hypocrites and they're liars. They're more interested with filling their pockets with our money than they are improving our lives. Politicians are the same. Politicians, bank managers, company directors, these guys are not leaders either. They elect themselves to lead us. They use their social media to propagate their false politics all over the place and brainwash us with propaganda. So it's in our hands. We need to become those leaders. You and I and the people in our groups. We need to train ourselves to improve. We need to educate ourselves with these strategies and become better leaders and never stop improving, so that we can defeat that decline and see an eventual renaissance, really, and push the progress forward of our nations, our groups, and ourselves. That's why we're doing this. So, point 4 nicely rounds off that point that I was just making. Point 4 is educating yourself. Now, this requires a solid foundation, a team around you, a nice, peaceful part of the day for you to just read and think and watch videos. But it's absolutely vital that we educate ourselves and we make records so that we can keep track of the things that we've studied. Because I can read those books there. I can read all of those books there in a day if I want. End to end, if I do nothing but reading, I can read all of those end to end without missing a word. But do you think I will memorize any of that stuff? No, I won't. I would have wasted my time reading those books, and it will then become simple, fruitless entertainment for me to just read, and it won't even be that interesting. So I'm wasting my time if I read without notes, and if I speed read without making records. So, educate yourself, buy books and read them, spend time watching videos by all means, contribute to your conversations with your groups and social medias, but none of that is going to benefit you. You will not learn anything unless you make your own records and you study those. So like with me, I have made notes every single day for the last 3.5 years, but I don't just throw them in a drawer. I make videos about my notes and I share them with you all, and I study my own notes. And as you can see, I'm doing it now. One of my earliest videos from 3.5 years ago, this is the Redux. This is the version 2 of that. So you're now seeing the improvements that I have made in 3.5 years, and I can't lie about them. I can't embellish them. I can't pretend that I've made progress where I haven't, because the 3.5-year-old video that I made is proof of where I started. This video now, and the things I'm saying, and you being in my group, or my viewer, is the evidence of what I'm saying being true. Your life and your appearance on my channel is the testimony to the progress that I have made, that I'm trying to share with you. So please, remember, educate yourself with books, videos, conversations, social medias, going out to day trips or whatever. All of that stuff's useful. But you won't learn anything unless you make good, accurate, regular records and you study them as if they're as important as those books there. Even the Bible. I'd go as far as saying that your own records that you will be making, when you study them back, they will be as useful to you as anything out of these books here. Possibly more so in the short term. So make sure you do that. And the reason we are educating ourselves, studying our own records and improving our mind, educating ourselves with other people's lives, our enemies and our opponents, as well as our friends, is so that we can strategize for the future. What that means is we can have a goal-setting plan for the short term, the medium term, the long term. Looking to the future, we can know what's up ahead, how we're going to get there, potential problems that we're going to face, and how we're going to solve them. And who's going to be there at the top of that hill when we plant the flag and we see victory? That's a strategy that we are going to have to build for ourselves. And when we do that and start sharing it with others, we have become leaders. We are showing leadership qualities when we do that, rather than wasting our time, rather than wasting our life watching cartoons and memes, smoking and drinking and just doing fun things that don't benefit anyone. We will have planted the seed in the minds of our friends and the ones we love and ourselves, and we are seeing that grow, like I'm doing now, 3.5 years later. Educate yourself, solid foundation, build your team, and maintain a good attitude. So they were the points that I covered in that original video. Now let's go through the physical evidence of the improvements that I managed to make, not so I can blow my own trumpet. We'll go through the things I got wrong and the flaws that I've picked up, how I'm going to work on those. But these are the practical things that I'm sharing with you that you can do. I would recommend you do all of these things so that you can improve your skills, your education, you can sharpen that sword, and you can have a better team around you, and you can have a better strategy going forward. So your life will be better if you learn these things. And the evidence is, compare me to 3.5 years ago. Like I said, I'll link you that original video, watch that, then watch this. Compare Daily Corvid 3.5 years ago to Daily Corvid today. And that will be the evidence that this stuff works. So, the first thing that I did 3.5 years ago, 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks and 3 days ago from today, is I decided, because I could see it coming, that I was going to need to become an expert in the study of Islam. I was going to need to read and translate an Arabic Quran as well as read and study the English versions that we have here, so that I could prepare myself for an eventual confrontation with angry, pissed off Muslims. Even though nothing was happening at the time, I'd predicted a holy war, and I had said, in this country, in Britain, Muslims are going to present a problem to guys like me, Jewish ethnicity, Christian faith, white, conservative, English guy. And it proved to be the case, despite me being told I was a on-drugs loser and I was crazy and it was absolute lunacy for me to suggest that, and I was racist for suggesting that. Here we are, 3.5 years later, and I don't think anyone would argue with that. We can see across the world, wars did develop. There is a threat of nuclear annihilation from those countries. Islam has become a big problem, and the reason is because people don't study, they don't have a solid foundation, and their groups are filled with spies and dower merchants, liars. They don't have a good team of people they trust who maintain their good attitude, who they can progress with. So I studied Islam and Quran for 3 years. I completed a video series of records, which you may have seen, called Without Lies, Islam Dies. And even though, not that it matters to me, but I don't get the credit for Without Lies, Islam Dies, virtually every single video that mentions Islam, if you scroll through the comments, somebody will tag Without Lies, Islam Dies, or just say it as a branded slogan, as the defense of Western Christian values. Now, they don't know that that's me. They don't know that that was me that started that my series Without Lies, Islam Dies popularised that. So maybe they don't get the full recollection of wisdom from that series. But I did. And the reason I got that recollection of wisdom was from studying the Quran, Arabic, English, the Reliance of the Traveller and the news, and studying Muslims individually, and making records, video records as well as written records. And the conclusion of that was, not only did I learn about the strategy of my enemy, so that when they eventually did try to kill me outside of my door, I was able to survive that and progress, my faith in God, my Christianity was increased. Because I had been warned about these things in the Bible, didn't really take them seriously, didn't really study the Bible as hard as I should have, but after studying the Quran and watching the progress of the jihad, it dawned on me, we need to, if we're Christians especially, but if we're just humanitarian people, Democrats, we need to develop an anti-jihad strategy And that means we need to be better, faster, fitter, stronger, more intelligent, more motivated, closer knit with our teams, our family. We need to be stronger. And that's why this is so important. And I feel like in the last 3.5 years, I have achieved largely that goal. You know, I'm still progressing now, like you all are. But in terms of 3 years ago compared to now, one of my goals was increase health, increase reputation, increase knowledge, increase friends group. All of those things I feel like have come along and I've progressed because of doing these things. So that's what I'm trying to tell you is if you're not doing these things, start. If you have been doing these things, do more. And you won't go far wrong. My next task was to build up my home, you know, the solid foundation physically. And what I ended up doing is getting into gardening and also building up a library. So not just library books, I have a library of music, I have a library of physical media, records, CDs, games, and VHS tapes and DVDs. I have a record of files, notes that I made myself, plus newspaper cuttings and, you know, evidence and artifacts of things that happen now, just in case that ever disappears. Because we are now seeing fake news, we're seeing AI fake news as well, we're seeing propaganda, and we're seeing the removal of real news by the state broadcaster, BBC, Sky News, Reuters and others. And because I have physical evidence of these things, even if they get completely deleted from the internet, from the news sites, from everyone's minds, if no one else remembers that these things happened, I have accurate records. I have evidence, so when I look back, nobody can put doubts in my mind that these things happened and that they happened the way that I remember them. Because I have notes, I have evidence, and I have memories from those two things and from the occurrence. So, what I'm getting at is building up your home, including the things that are going to keep you in that peaceful, good attitude, that good mood. For me, anyway, the things that I rely on to, you know, it's like mindfulness, effectively. It's non-hippie, non-new age mindfulness. It's practical mindfulness. The things that I have is a very expensive aircon system, because I'm constantly here working, making videos, and my computer's generating heat the whole time. I have lots of stuff to relax with. I have my team to speak to. I have art supplies so that I can just doodle about on paper or do paintings and make music or whatever when I need to relax. And I have a garden. I started to... one of my friends, Sam, actually was very encouraging to me and helped me out with it. And I now have a beautiful garden, which I have to tend to every day. And that's how I build my solid foundation. It isn't all just work and no play, because that wears you out. 60% work, 40% play is how I like to swing it. So the 40% play is gardening, playing computer games, listening and writing music, contributing to groups and discussions with other people, and just speaking on the phone to people, and staying in touch with my family. I can't tell you how important that is, because we know propaganda is there to change people's minds, to split families, to divide families, to send you against your brothers and sisters. And it is very successful. It's been planned that way. So with that in mind, if you have any chance at all of staying close-knit with your family, you need to understand the tactics and strategies of your enemy, that divisive propaganda, but you also need to have patience with them, because they might well accept all that stuff and that will become their politic. They'll feel as strongly about that as you do about your politics and your religion or your atheism. And that will cause arguments. That's what it's designed for. So if you can't accept that and be patient and show them leadership, remember what I was saying earlier about we have to develop leadership. If you can't lead the way, then there's no chance that relationship will survive. It will break down and your family will split apart. You'll fall out with brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, uncles, nephews, nieces, whatever. Somebody has to be the one that takes it for the team, if you like, and says, okay, well, I'll accept your opinions and I won't tell you how terribly corrupt they are. I'll accept your propagandized politics. I won't tell you how stupid you are to believe that. I'll accept all these things without complaint, because the relationship is more important to me than the politics. And if you can do that, while everyone else is arguing and being divisive and, They're not doing it on purpose. They're struggling with the politics and the propaganda, struggling with life. You will be the solid foundation for them. You'll be the rock in their life. And that will mean in time, your family will coalesce around you. You will become the leader in your family. Whether you get recognized for it or rewarded for it doesn't matter. You will be the solid post that they cling to in a storm. And that will make you naturally a leader. So you would have developed your leadership skill because of solid foundations, good team building, peacefulness, keeping your attitude and your mood good, studying, making records, and having a strategy. And then making sure that you stick to that strategy. The other thing I did is to upgrade my redundancy for future disasters, if you like. I think people like the term preppers, don't they? You might be a prepper. If you're not, you should be. So what did I do to prepare for the disaster of the future? Nuclear war and political upheaval and riots in the street and the breakdown of law and order. What did I do to prepare for these things, which may well happen, and actually, since 3.5 years ago, are far more likely and are now being talked about in the zeitgeist, the common discussion of the nation, as if they are definitely going to happen. Those conversations are happening in the mainstream now. So what do we do to get prepared for those things? Well, make sure we have food, water, educational supplies, pens, paper, stuff to do. I also have a solution for energy if there's a power outage. So things like that physically you can do. But by the time that happens, you already want to have your support network arranged, which is your study groups or your WhatsApp chat groups and your family and your friends. And you need to have developed that trust. They need to trust you as well. And you need to already have a plan for, what do I do when the power goes off? What do I do when the economy fails? What do I do when there's a pandemic and there's a lockdown? What do I do when there's war, there's nuclear war, or there's gas weapons, or there's a propaganda war? What do I do when the worst happens? You need to start making those plans and actually investing your time and money in being prepared, being ready for that, so that your life has solid redundancy. And it's all for that solid foundation, so that you can progress and you can grow into the best version of you, and you will naturally become a leader to others. And I can't stress that enough. Leadership is sadly very, very lacking everywhere in society right now. There's no leadership from the very top right to the bottom. And it's causing the destruction of culture. The culture needs a lead. The culture needs a guide to make sure it's going in the right direction. And if nobody else is doing it, then you have to do it. It's just a sad fact of life. It's a simple truth. If there are no leaders in your life, then even though people aren't going to accept you as a leader, you need to become one. And you can be one. And the way that's going to work is by studying this stuff and doing it. And I really hope I'm making that point to you. I know it's a long video. I haven't shown you any memes or done any funny dancing for you. I've got no cats or dogs for you to laugh at. No cute babies punching their mothers. But this is really important for your future, for the future of everyone that you know and love. That you recognise this is truthful stuff. And the evidence of it is, watch that 3.5 year video when I started. Compare my life and me then to now. And attribute the improvements that I have made to this. This is what I've been doing that whole time. So, I've studied more of the Bible because I'm now prepared and I have less stress, I have less to worry about, I have more money, I have more stuff, I have better tools, I have more friends, and my family are closer with me. Generally, I fell out with both my sisters who are now Marxist, or at least one of them is, and she doesn't like Christians or Jews anymore, so she's become a racist ideologue who thinks we're all racist ideologues. So we fell out, and she actually fell out with me, didn't tell me why. So apart from her, that's a flaw that I can deal with. Apart from her, the rest of my life has markedly improved. I have improved, my family relations have improved, and what that has allowed for is more time for me to study books like the Bible, which you cannot speed read. It's so thickly packed with information and requires interpretation from intelligent minds and rereading and restudy and records. I needed extra time to do that, and because I was prepared and I did all this strategizing stuff and the prepping and everything else, now I've got my garden that I can sit in and read. Now I've had time to really study the Bible. That's what I've been doing for the last 18 months, solid. And because I've done that, I've found new approaches to things like science, meta-science, politics, and talking about those things with sense, not being dragged into silly debates and arguments for the sake of making videos or, pointless stuff that isn't going to reward me or benefit you. And that means I have been able to develop a more focused strategy than I originally had. So the one that I originally had was the basis of this. By the end of this video, you will know how much better it is than the old one. And the way that I developed it to make it better was through the things that we've been talking about, which I hope you do. So I completed the founding of several teams. I made 3 teams. One was, I won't describe the people, but one was a Christian team who you will know many of now. And they're off doing their own thing. I ended up leaving that. Someone joined who I just didn't jive with, don't really trust, wasn't willing to work with, so I left. But they still do largely good work, with the exception of some of the things that he's done recently and said. They do good work. So I'm still in touch with that team. I have my current team, which has 5 or 6 people. Hopefully you will be watching this video, my beloved 6 people. That's my newer team. And I have another team, which is not primarily Christians, or some people in it have become Christians. And that's my diversity, Jewish, atheists, Catholics, and everyone else is in that team from my Discord. And I pull from all 3 of those teams to learn about them all so that I can develop that strategy and that I can teach the things that I've learned back to them. And we can all get better. So that's the ending of phase 1, if you like. Phase 1 of my strategy was within 4 years to have done that. We've got 1 year remaining in that phase 1. Then we step up to phase 2. So like I say, that's the evidence that this stuff works, is you can see the progress that I have made. You can see in my background and the equipment that I'm using, the camera, computer, my recording software, my skill as a presenter, my confidence in my own education, all these things have improved. And not only are they improved, they are planning to get better still. So part of my strategy is constant enforcement and improvement of me. So that means recognizing my faults, taking criticism from people and acting upon it, not being afraid to be criticized, not having a tantrum every time someone says, well, you did this wrong, or you did this badly, or you need to improve. And that's part of my strategy too. And that's another thing which I have not seen a lot of in society, even within the YouTube circles of people who have the big fluffed out arrogance, the big characters, the big popular people. These guys do not show that improvement. In fact, they show regression, or they're just stagnant. They don't do anything different week after week after week. They're sat on their laurels, resting, not making any progress. That will not be us. And as you can see from, I keep going back to it, compare the 3.5 years ago video to now, you can see that that's not me and the evidence of that. And I can confidently state that in the 3.5 years since I started this project, I have improved massively because of that feedback, not despite that feedback. The criticism that you all brought me in the comments, or even the people who hated me brought me, I always considered that it may be true, and I studied it, and that was how I was able to accurately say, this needs to improve, this needs to change, this needs to go out, this needs to come in. And that's how that progress has happened. So 43.5 minutes, that's pretty much the end of it. So now we're going to conclude on what the improvements were, particularly and practically, and what improvements I intend to make going forward, so that I'm not just doing this to talk about myself, I'm doing this so you can learn from me, you can make your life better. If you thoroughly study this video and the things that I've said, you will be able to make these improvements. You'll probably be able to do them better than I will. None of this stuff was natural to me. This is all accumulated, educated, learnt knowledge. None of this was natural to me. I'm almost exactly the opposite person I was when I started. I've got more confidence now, for instance. I'm more reasonable. I'm more accepting of some diverse opinions, but less accepting of others. And I'm willing to be criticised. I'm willing to be called names. I'm willing to take risks which I previously wasn't. These are all things I targeted in my strategy to improve, to gain the improvement from. Now we're going to go through the bullet points of that. Increase my health, because when I started, my health was very low. You can see in my videos, I looked terrible in my videos 3.5 years ago. I just had several serious operations. I'd become disabled. I'd lost my bowel, and I wasn't having an easy time getting medication for this. My diet was terrible. I wasn't getting enough exercise, and my habits were declining, and my mood was declining. So priority 1 was increase my health, and I feel like you can see I've done that. I look far healthier. My dentistry is better. My general health is better. I get regular exercise by doing litter picks whenever I can, plus I tend my garden, so I'm waking up early. I have a routine. I'm eating breakfast, I'm drinking more water, and I'm going to bed on time most nights. I'm dealing with stress as a result of that better. So that's point number 1. If your strategy doesn't start and end with increase physical health and mental health, it should. Absolutely, that needs to be point 1. Increase mental and physical health every single day. Point number 1, that should be. And I feel like I've done that through this strategy. And that's something I'm going to be focusing on going forward. There's never going to be a reduced focus on that. Increase health, mental and physical all the time. It's the most important thing. It's your body that you use every day and your mind that you think with every day. The second thing was increased my reputation. Increased reputation. When I moved here like 7-8 years ago, I didn't know a soul. Not a soul knew me. And then soon afterwards I was being attacked on a regular basis by Muslims, and I didn't understand why. And they were ruining my reputation by drawing bad dramas and attention to me and my property. Regardless of the fact that I wasn't causing any of it and I never retaliated to it, the neighbours and the people that live around here didn't see that. What they saw is violent occurrences outside my door involving me fairly often, police turning up every few weeks, destroyed things outside or broken pots, broken windows, broken letterboxes, shouting in the street. They all saw these things, and without knowing any better, they associated that with me, because I was always visible, whereas the people that were attacking me generally had their heads covered with hoods, or they would run away afterwards. I never ran away. So I needed to increase my reputation organically in a real, genuine way to counteract the loss of reputation from that happening, that racism. So how did I do that? I did community work as much as I could, and everyone who stopped to speak to me I would spend time with. I would never hide anything, my name or the reason I was doing it, or when they asked me about the occurrences of violence outside my house or the criminal damage or anything else, I would never lie about it. And I was supportive and kind to every single person I met. Even people who were horrible to me, I tried my best to be useful in some way to them. Even the guys that attacked me, even my stalker guy who tried to kill me. Even now, I try and be as useful and proactive in his life, if I ever can, as I can be. And that's how my reputation improves. So now, I don't have a perfect reputation, but the thing that you can learn from me is reputation is like having a garden. You have to constantly water it, and when it grows, you have to keep it pruned. Don't get prideful and start thinking you're huge. You're not. You're just a person that lives in a community. And if you ever stop watering it, it will die. And what I mean by that is your reputation, if you don't cultivate a good reputation, if you don't do things in the community and behave in a good way and tell the truth and get along with everyone and be patient, if you don't do these things, any mistakes you make will be magnified. And those will be the things people remember you by. That's what I learned. Reputation is not fair. It's not like if I do 100 great things and one bad thing, people are going to think I'm 100 times better than I am bad. That's not how it works. The one bad thing that you do will be the thing everybody talks about. And by talking about it, that will be the thing that they remember from you. And you are defined in the people that don't know you by that one error you made. They may not even know that the 100 things you did were you. Like I did loads of litter picking and people knew it was me doing the litter picks. But when they saw a fight erupt outside my house with me as part of it, They didn't think, oh, he's done 100 litter picks this month or whatever, so I'm going to not remember this. They forgot about the litter picking, and they just thought, oh, he was in a fight outside his house. We don't know why. Maybe he's a violent, horrible guy. And my reputation dipped because of that. So the way that you can learn from my experience of that and improve your own reputation locally, which is a really important thing to do, is keep doing the litter picks. And when people mention the fights, don't take the opportunity to stab the knife into the guy who attacked you or the people who are your detractors and your enemies, because it's tempting. You may feel angry towards them, and it may well be justified, like it was with me. But the one thing I never did was tell people who asked me about those fights that it was all 100% this guy and he's just a psycho and he should be hated and that it was just something that he did. I always tried to be reasonable, and I said, I think I know why he's doing this, and I wish he wouldn't, but I'm trying to understand why, he's a reasonable guy and he's just been misled, or he's been given false information, or maybe his politics have led him there, and I was willing to forgive him. And that's the thing people remembered after all the fights stopped and he got thrown out and now he's away. Because I was constantly fair and forgiving, the violence and the bad reputation he brought me went away with him. And that's the thing that I really hope you learn when we're talking about reputation, in order that you can have a solid foundation and not need to move away, you can feel at home in your own home, is the way that you behave towards others. Like I said at the beginning, your identity is only useful to you in relation to other people. Your identity is only useful to you in relation to others, and that means being forgiving, patient, and sometimes unfair to yourself. You accept a sacrifice on yourself so that other people can have a benefit that they don't deserve, which is, by the way, a Christian value. When you do that in the long term, people will come to know you as that guy, that person, that forgiving, patient, fair-minded, reasonable, kindly person. That's what you want. That's going to be your reputation. Then it doesn't matter who attacks you, breaks your stuff. The thing that will be remembered is your behaviour. The things you did, not what you said or what was said about you. What people actually saw you do. So we went through increased knowledge, increased friends group, learn books, computer games, videos, music, watching social media presentations and lectures, making accurate records and studying. We won't go into that anymore. You already know that bit. Increased friend group, relationship with family and friends, cultivating good relationships and not allowing yourself to fall out with people over a difference of opinion. Now, I've been guilty of this, and I've been really trying to make amends with those people recently, especially. No names mentioned, but I fell out with a very dear friend of mine based on him propagating flat earth. He believes in flat earth and some other stuff that went along with it, and this was a deal breaker to me at the time, and we couldn't agree, and we got madly angry with each other, and we kind of went our separate ways. And like I was saying, this actually was counterproductive to us both, because we both blamed each other. And then the communities that surrounded us saw that spite and that bitterness and thought, well, you guys are just not very nice people. And it made us both lose countenance. And neither one of us gained anything from it. He still believes flat earth. I still believe globe earth. It was completely pointless. That whole argument, that whole discussion and the tempers flaring, it was all for nothing. So recently what I've been trying to do is make amends, even though I still don't really think that it was, what I was saying wasn't at fault. I still believe that the earth is round and that gravity is real, but it shouldn't have been a deal breaker that he didn't accept that. He's allowed to have flat earth and no gravity and the science that he has to demonstrate that that's real, because I want that intellectual diversity in my friend group. Because without that view there, it's an echo chamber. And I don't want that. So hopefully that guy, I have been speaking to him recently, you know who you are, Mr. Beloved friend of mine. Hopefully we can reconnect and become as good friends as we were before, and that will not be a problem. In fact, it will be something we can discuss openly without having flared tempers. And through that I will have improved my knowledge, my friend group, and myself. And finally, Increased family relations. Well, like I said, I fell out with both my sisters, or no, not necessarily both. One of my sisters, who kind of controls the other one. I fell out with the controlling one. And, you know, I don't think that's ever going to go anywhere. She has made her mind up with her weird Marxist politics. She doesn't like religious people, specifically Christians. She doesn't like Jews, even though we're ethnically Jewish. So that's weird. She's now racist against herself and me. So that isn't going anywhere. But that's a flaw I accept. That was partly my fault because I didn't see it, I didn't see it from her point of view enough. Even though I disagree with it, I should have seen it from her point of view more. Apart from that, I get on far better with all of my family members, specifically my mum and dad. I have a really great relationship with them. They've forgiven me for the stupidities of my youth, and I've forgiven them for the ignorance of their elderly years and, not being perfect as parents. So that's something that you can definitely learn from me, is it's worth making little sacrifices here and there and just letting people have their difference of opinion in order that you can keep strong relationships with your mother and father, with your family and your, sort of second tier family, cousins, nephews and aunts and stuff. Because in the long run, you're going to need those connections and they're going to feed your life. They're going to benefit you. And whether they like to admit it or not, your family need you. They need your interaction, your knowledge, and your life is going to benefit them. And even though they won't admit it, if you're gone completely out of their life and they go no contact or whatever, the only person that really loses out from that is them and their children. Because they don't any longer have that family link, that intellectual diversity, that sharpening of swords is no longer happening, and you have encased them in an echo chamber which you are in. So you're basically brainwashing your children and yourself into whatever trendy politic got you there in the first place if you do that, and it's not good. So don't do that. Make sure you stay in touch with friends, family, second tier family, make sacrifices if you have to, and be happy to, because it's worth it. It really is. And the last one is upgraded technology rollout. So I'll make this quick because it ain't going to be that interesting, but you saw in my earlier videos I had a very cheap microphone, I had no lighting, I didn't have an interesting backdrop, my computer was slow, didn't have a graphics card, and my camera wasn't very good. I didn't have aircon, so I would often get sweaty head making videos. And you could hear humming in the background and stuff because I didn't have quiet equipment. So I've invested in all those things, but not just in my computer and my recording setup. Having aircon, having a garden so I can go and relax, having music in my life to keep me calm has made my music better. All these things not only are adding to my solid foundation and making my production, my record keeping better, these things, as predicted, have risen in value because of the China situation and now also the war and also the tariffs. Everything that I invested in, all this stuff that you can see behind me, which I bought as gifts for my niece and nephew, all this stuff is now double in price if I was going to buy it or more. Some of it's not even available. My musical equipment, my computer equipment, all of it has gone up in value. So the net financial value of me, my property, my house and my stuff has gone up. And I didn't even intend that. It wasn't like I knew that was going to happen. I kind of had an inkling. But the point is, remember, my original goal was to be financially better and to increase my health and my reputation. And having all this feeds back into that. So the summary of the video as we come up to an hour is, as I complete the last year of phase 1 of my plan, when I go into phase 2, I now have better health, better connections and friends, a stronger tight-knit family, I have more money, I have better equipment, I know more, and I'm more confident and organised going forward into phase 2 of that strategy. So as the world disintegrates into chaos, as disaster and catastrophe rack every single nation and people's lives become more stressful, they become confused and angry and their behaviour drops, I am consistently the same or maybe even better. And that means when everybody else is dropping like flies down to a lower level, I'm still there. I will have elected myself as a natural leader. And then all I have to do is make my reputation better and be nice and kindly to people so that they accept that leadership from me and we can all start to improve. And I hope that's what you've taken from this video, is you can be that person in your own life, that naturally elected leader that helps everybody who is around you, everybody in your life, get better, deal with stress better, survive catastrophe better, be more financially viable in your life, have a nicer house, better relationships and a stronger family, and most of all, keep yourself in a good mood, a good attitude, and be organised in the future. You know, strategize for having a better future, not just for you, but for everyone that knows you. And stick to that plan like glue, and you'll do just fine. So, oh, that was a long one, wasn't it? That's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed that and you learned something. If you have any questions, please hit me up in the comments or send me an email. I'm always happy to speak to people about this kind of stuff. And remember that the country that we live in is made of us, individuals. If we can improve ourselves to a sufficient level and show leadership to the others, we are helping our nation rise up out of chaos, and all the benefits we will see, health benefits, financial benefits, educational benefits, social benefits, family benefits, our country will also see. And that's what we're here for. So that's the end of this video. God bless you all, and I'll see you lovely people in the next one. Bye now.